Let's start. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Some of you may remember me in the past. I have given very sporadic talks here. I used to give more frequent talks, but I think I've just become so busy and I travel a lot and so on. But it really is a great pleasure and a joy to give a talk in this Discord channel. It has a lot of sentimental value for me. I had some very good moments in this Discord channel in the past. Let us start with the title of the talk. And if you're not familiar with my style, I go off track a lot. So don't be put off by that. There's a reason I go off track. You know what I say, what I don't say, that kind of stuff. Yeah. There is a hadith. Famous hadith, you may have heard it, especially in Ramadan. Narrated, Abu Huraira is a Sahabi who narrates it. It says, ثلاثة لا ترد دعوتهم. There are three types of people, three categories of people that their dua is not returned back to them. Is not thrown back at them. That dua, we make dua all the time, right? In our prayer, in our sujood, some of us do qiyam, and in our qiyam, we may be walking down the street and do dua. Collectively as a nation, we do dua. People do dua in Jum'ah. But you notice that sometimes your dua is accepted, sometimes your dua is not accepted. Sometimes the entire nation's dua is not accepted. How many times have we collectively made dua and it's not accepted? And sometimes it just gets accepted, right? So normally, the normal mechanism of dua is it depends on your status. And sometimes it depends on the collective status. So sometimes if you do lots of sins, if you're a bad person, especially if you oppress other people or you take the rights of other people or things like that, then your dua may not be answered. You're at risk of your dua not being answered. This is the normal mechanism. The other aspect is if people as a collective do not enjoy good and forbid evil, especially in relation to their ruler, and to relation to the system of governance, then their dua is not accepted. And the evidence for this is the first hadith in Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal. إني سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول, this is part of his longer khutbah that he gave to the people when he assumed the Khilafah. He said, I heard from Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم, Abu Bakr is saying this, إن الناس إذا رأوا الظالم, if the people, by the way, I'm not following the questions in the chat. Please remind me at the end, just because I'm just, it's just going to be too much of a tangent. If it's okay, I really apologize. وإني سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إن الناس إذا رأوا الظالم, the people when they see an oppressor, and how many oppressors has the Muslim world seen? Many oppressors. Abu Bakr is saying this to who? To the Sahaba, the best generation. إن الناس إذا رأوا الظالم, if the people have see an oppressor, فَلَمْ يَأْخُذُوا عَلَى يَدَيْهِ, meaning they don't take him by the hand. Meaning if he deviates from the sunnah, or if he oppresses, or he takes people's rights, they force him by the hand, not by advice, not by letters sent secretly. By يَأْخُذُوا عَلَى يَدَيْهِ, they force him with the hand, meaning they take action against him. رَأَوْا الظَّالِمَ فَلَمْ يَأْخُذُوا عَلَى يَدَيْهِ أوشك الله يعمهم الله تعالى بعذاب منه, and Allah will punish them collectively. And in another variant, they will call upon Allah and they will make dua and it will not be answered. If your dua is not answered, there are reasons why it doesn't get answered. There are exceptions to the mechanism. But if you're really in trouble, you really need your dua to be answered, and here we go to this hadith. So there is the general mechanism of dua, then there is the, help, I need dua, and then there is the critical, oh my days, I have to answer, the dua has to be answered immediately. It's life and death critical. That's the third stage, the final stage. So it's unlocking different realities with your dua. Right. So now we're in the second layer, which is an important layer. Like your dua, even though you're a sinner, even though you shouldn't have your dua answered, but your dua gets answered anyway. Allah Azza wa Jalla promises that He will answer your dua even if maybe you weren't worthy of having your dua normally answered. So, and these are three categories. ثلاثة لا ترد دعوتهم. The dua cannot be rejected. The first one is الصائم حتى يفطر. الصائم حتى يفطر. The fasting person until, not unconditionally, but until he breaks his fast. They differed. Is this the only Ramadan, only in the obligatory prayers, or is it Sunan? Let's just go generally. That when you're in a fasting state, until you break your fast, your dua does not get rejected. Why? Because the person has shown restraint, right? The theme in all of this hadith, in all three categories, is restraint. Restraint, or patience, or like withholding. The person has withheld his desires and food and the worldly desires. So to compensate him or her, to the fasting person, then Allah Azza wa Jal does not reject their dua. You see, it's a simple calculation. Because you withheld for the sake of Allah, then your dua does not get rejected. Generally, let's stick with generally. The scholars did even talk about that in more detail. I'm just giving you an overview. The fasting is not our main concern here. It's later in the hadith. But generally, when you make dua in fasting, it gets accepted in one way or another. But of course, you have to know something about dua. If you ask for a Lamborghini, you say, Allah, give me a Lamborghini while you're fasting. Okay, this is a legitimate dua. You ask for a Lamborghini. The problem is, in the knowledge of Allah, maybe if He gave you the Lamborghini, you then go and find some female acquaintance, and then you commit zina, and then maybe she convinces you to drink alcohol. You get the point, and then it's actually your downfall. So if He gave it to you, it's actually not in your best interest. So He may give you something else, like a much better job, masalan, or you get the point. Like sometimes we ask for something and we don't know that if we were to get it, it's going to be absolutely horrible. So just bear that in mind. That sometimes you may notice this. You may have asked for something and then you didn't get it. Like, oh Allah, I want this particular job, or I want this particular, and then you don't get it, and then you look back in the past and said, oh, if I got it, I would have been screwed up, or if I got something better. So just bear that in mind, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sometimes answers your dua, especially in the worldly matters, and may give it a different way, because in His knowledge and in His wisdom, if you were to get that, you're going to be screwed, basically. It's going to be your downfall without you knowing it. طيب. ثلاثة لا ترد دعوتهم الصائم حتى يفطر والإمام العادل. In about we go to the second category. The imam that is just. And how rare are they? There's like a unicorn in Islamic history. The just imam. The just imam. Why is the just imam? And the imam here, let's use the vague definition. Let's not just use the khilafah. Let's use even if he's the mayor of a city, if he's a sultan of if he's let's use the that he's the leader of the people. Yeah, let's now be a bit more generous with our definitions. Yeah, because you could just say this refers to the khilafah, but let's be a bit more expansive. Well, Imam al-Adil, the Imam al-Adil, the just Imam, the righteous Imam. And if you look at Islamic history, there has been very few of them. There has been the Khulafa al-Rashidin. There's been Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, radiallahu ta'ala. There's been Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. But more important than him is Abdullah ibn Zubayr. And maybe one or two other Umayyad leaders. In the Abbasids, there's been a few. Harun Rashid. Maybe Al-Mu'tasim. Al-Mu'tasim, he did good stuff, but he did flog and imprison Ahmad al-Hanbal and a few other people. So I don't know if you can consider him Al-Imam al-Adil. If you expand it, at a wider definition, maybe there is of course, the Salahuddin, Qutuz, a few Mughals, a few of the Mughal leaders. The point is, it's a handful compared to the thousands and thousands of oppressive leaders. Yeah? You see the issue? So because now, why is the da'wah, why is the prayer of the just imam, why is it accepted without hesitation? Why is it accepted? Because the imam is also showing restraint in two ways. The imam shows restraint in two ways. He shows restraint. If you're a good leader, you show restraint in two ways. The first one is in terms of the dipping your hands into the public finances. That's the first one. The second one is in dipping your hands in the blood of the nation. Yani you don't kill, you restrain from killing unnecessarily, unless you need to kill someone because it's allowed Islamically, but killing unnecessarily and taking people's possessions and wealth unnecessary. And today, if you look at the past, for example, the Khulafa Rashidin, we have a great example, right? So I guess Uthman ibn Affan comes to mind. All of them come to mind, actually. I can give you so many examples. But Uthman ibn Affan, where he was asked to kill the rebels, kill them. And he didn't want to spill Muslim blood in his name. Al-Hasan ibn Ali, when he saw that there's a fitna, that the Sahaba are falling out, the Sahaba of Rasulullah are falling out over his position, even though, let's be honest, he was better than, he's a Khalifa Rashid, yani he's one of the rightly guided Khulafa, he was better than Sayyidina Muawiyah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, but nonetheless he stepped down. He showed courage stepping down, because he wanted to refrain from the blood of the people. He didn't bring the tanks, the sarin gas, so he just refrained. So the just leader refrains, and because he refrains from killing and dipping his hands in the public wealth, Allah answers his dua. And one of the good examples as well is Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, when you all know the famous story, when he had his young son, he ate an apple from a public garden, or from a neighbor's garden or whatever, and it was an apple. I think the apple even fell on the floor, and technically he could have just taken. But anyway, he took an apple, and Umar Abdul Aziz, he took a bite of the apple. Umar Aziz put his hands in his son's mouth and took out the apple and threw it on the floor, and basically reprimanded him. I think the kid even started to cry or so on. He said, well, why? Just let him eat the apple, and then afterwards tell him, don't eat the apple. La ala inni. It starts with the apple. Today, the minimum apple is billions in Swiss bank accounts. It's billions are squandered. Today, if a leader only took millions, he only stole millions, you say this leader is a great leader. You see, like today, if you look at who we consider good leaders, with the exception of the leaders of Afghanistan, who are known not to dip their hands in the public wealth, but if you look at, for example, Erdogan, some people consider him a great leader. Maybe because his family only took. I'm in Turkey, by the way, right now, so I have to be careful. Maybe his family only took a couple of million, 100 million. Zahid, we can say him Zahid. Imran Khan, who was arrested in Pakistan, maybe he only, his minimum corruption is only a couple of million. If so, do you see the point? Like, as in, we consider only those who steal a couple of million today as Zahid. Only those who kill, say, a couple of hundred as he's a just leader. So do you see how the standards have shifted? Right. But the point is, because there is oppression, and the default is actually not the just leader. Most of the leaders have not been just, and today they're not even leaders. They're like Mossad agents. We don't consider them leaders. But today, because of this, then there will be oppression. When there's no justice, there's going to be oppression. And now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, the oppressed person, which is the second part, the third final category, he also shows restraint, because he's suffering, sometimes in silence. His voice is contained. He almost gets to a state of despair, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden oppression on himself. So now this guy or this lady or this family is oppressed, but they're calling out to Allah. It's Allah's right over them to answer their prayer. Do you see? Because this is like such a dire situation. But there's a caveat. Look at this. وَدَعْوَةُ الْمَظْلُومِ, the final category is وَدَعْوَةُ الْمَظْلُومِ, the dua of the oppressed person. وَدَعْوَةُ الْمَظْلُومِ, look at this. يَرْفَعُهَا اللَّهُ فَوْقَ الْغَمَامِ. يرفعها الله فوق الغمام. Allah lifts it above the clouds. I was told not to go into Aqidah, so we'll not go into Aqidah. We'll just continue. Yeah, Allah will lift it above the clouds. وَتُفْتَحُ لَهَا أَبْوَابُ السَّمَاءِ. And Allah will, so the dua of the oppressed will rise above the clouds, rise above. وَتُفْتَحُ لَهَا أَبْوَابُ السَّمَاءِ. And the doors of heaven will open it. In other words, it will have an unfiltered access. It will just like go through. It will just go through. It will cross the prisons, the concentration camps, the walls, everything. Yeah, the drones, and so it will go higher, 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 higher. Do you see why it has to be higher? Yeah, higher, higher, higher. Because sometimes you feel suffocated when you're oppressed. You can't speak. Censorship, surveillance. Like it goes higher, higher than that, higher than that. وتفتح له أبواب السماء ويقول الرب. Now the hadith goes into hadith Qudsi. Hadith Qudsi. Yeah. Hadith Qudsi is where Rasulullah ﷺ becomes the narrator in the hadith. So usually it's like Abu Hurairah narrated that Rasulullah ﷺ said. Now Rasulullah ﷺ is narrating that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. So now, and the difference between Hadith Qudsi and Quran is Hadith Qudsi, it's not something where if we recite it, we get the reward that we would get with Quran. We can't pray with it. We can't, like, Hadith Qudsi, the phrase that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions here that I'm about to say, if we pray, you can't pray with it. So there's a difference between the speech of Allah that's in the Quran and the speech of Allah that comes in a hadith Qudsi. Yeah? But they're all the speech of Allah. Yeah. وَتُفْتَحُ لَهَا أَبْوَابُ السَّمَاءِ وَيَقُولُ الرَّبُّ. And the Lord, Rabb, Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَعِزَّتِي. Look at this. وَعِزَّتِي. By my majesty. Allah is swearing upon, giving an oath upon His own eminence, glory. وَعِزَّتِي. By my majesty or by my glory. وَعِزَّتِي لَأَنصُرَنَّكَ. I will. Why did the hadith go into Qudsi? Because here is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to tell us via the Prophet ﷺ's hadith, that there's no access whatsoever. Even Rasulullah ﷺ is not going to even like phrase what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. He's not going to say, he could have just said this. He says, and then Allah will answer him, and he goes directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the one answering it. وَيَقُولُ الرَّبُّ وَعِزَّتِي لَأَنصُرَنَّكَ. By my glory I will give you victory. وَلَوْ بَعْدَ حِينٍ. Even if it takes a while. Even if it takes 76 years. Look, and we saw this in the past. How long did Rasulullah stay in between when he was kicked out of Mecca before he came back? How long did the Crusaders stay in the Holy Land before they were kicked out? How long did the Mongols stay? How long did the Crusaders stay? And how long did the Communists stay? And how long did NATO stay? And so, do you see? But it takes a while. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, don't panic. The dua is reaching. The dua will be answered. وَعِزَّتِي, but as giving an oath, He will give victory. He will, لَأَنصُرَنَّكَ. I will not, وَعِزَّتِي Allahu sayansuruk, like in the third person, in the first person. وَعِزَّتِي, by my eminence, I will give you victory. لَأَنصُرَنَّكَ, I will come to your aid. لَأَنصُرَنَّكَ وَلَوْ بَعْدَ حِينٍ. Even if it takes a while. It didn't say it takes a couple of hours. It could take years. It could take decades. فَعِزَّتِي لَأَنصُرَنَّكَ وَلَوْ بَعْدَ حِينٍ. Rarely, actually, it happens straight away. Usually it takes a while. If you look at Islamic history, always like after a period of oppression, it takes a while for things to correct. Yeah. وَعِزَّتِي لَأَنصُرَنَّكَ وَلَوْ بَعْدَ حِينٍ. But what if it's already, you can't wait that long. The Merkava is already in your street. Huh? What if you cannot wait that long and the Merkava is already in your street? Before I tell you that, I want to say that there is also a group of Muslim scholars of all the different sects, by the way, not like a particular sect. But they will come to you and they will say to you, especially we see this in the Arab world, we are powerless, we are worthless, we are مش عارف ايه, we cannot, do you see, yeah? We cannot, the only thing we can do is do dua. How many times have you heard this? You must have heard a variation of this, I'm pretty sure. We are powerless, all we have is dua. All we have is dua. It sounds like a beautiful thing. All we have is dua. Dua is good. All we have is dua. What is wrong with that? This is an opium, a drug. Okay, listen. Abu Sulaiman, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, Khalid ibn al-Walid, when he would give dua is when he's crushing the enemy. Well, you're crushing the enemy, give dua. You don't give dua in your bedroom and say, we're powerless. Like, you're not powerless. They lied to you when they told you you're powerless. You're not powerless. You've been made powerless. You've been gaslit into appearing powerless. Do you see? You already saw, away from the battles in GAZA, this is for the elite people. Even away from that, even the protests has changed the narrative. Even a few student protests has changed the narrative. Do you see? So you're not powerless. But dua is when you act, not as a replacement to acting. This is very important. You don't use it as a band-aid. Just like you don't use protest only. If you say, oh, only protest, only civil disobedience is enough. La, habibi. La, habibi. You only you say, oh, but not Mandela. Mandela used armed resistance. La, اسمه Gandhi, that pervert, Gandhi. He used, yeah, but look at the outcome. The country was split up. The so-called peaceful resistance didn't work at all, and it ignores the decades of especially Muslim resistance, armed resistance to the British. He's only focusing on a guy who walked barefoot and somehow this guy. No, so peaceful. Do you understand? So it has a role. It has a role, but it isn't the only and the main solution. But there's a final layer, the unlocking layer, the top layer. Look at this. When khalas, the Merkava is coming your way and you feel khalas, you're about to, it's life and death. Look at this. أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَ. Listen to this, in Surah An-Naml, verse 62. Who is the one who answers the desperate plea? I mean, there's a difference when you say dua when you're relatively comfortable and when you're really desperate. أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ. It's a rhetorical question. Who is the one who will answer the desperate plea when he calls upon him, ay Allah? وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ. And he removes the harm, the imminent danger. And when there's an imminent danger, and he removes the harm. وَيَجْعَلَكُمْ خُلَفَاءَ الْأَرْضِ. And he makes you the inheritors of the land. He makes you the inheritors of the land. On the subject of inheriting the land, there was a couple of days ago an interesting article in Ahron, what's it called? Ahron, the ynetnews.com website, the English translation of that. And you say, why are you listening to Israeli media? Often I go to the Israeli websites when they are mourning. It's a good to read their mourning, and also sometimes they have a discourse that is interesting, that tells you what their state of thinking is. This was an article where they had an interview with Professor Sevi Mazeh. I hope I'm saying it right. Sevi Mazeh. He is a professor in Tel Aviv University, and he recently won the Israeli prize in physics. It's like a prestigious prize in the Zionist entity. But he had also worked with the European Space Agency, and they had jointly discovered, it was part of the discovery of a new black hole. They omitted his name. And he said, I'm noticing this. A lot of my colleagues, our names are getting omitted. The journals are refusing us for no reason. Like this, it's like we used to get accepted very easily. Now we're getting. So he's saying this is like an ominous sign for us. But this is not the bit that I'm interested in, not his scientific kind of problems, career and so on. He also like is a man who goes into a lot of scientists are like that, by the way. They're not atheists. A lot of scientists do go in, are quite religious. And you see a lot of Muslim scientists also quite religious, by the way. So it's not, and some Christian scientists. It's wrong to think that most scientists are like that. A lot of scientists don't want to talk about religion because it's not seen as, it's seen as can damage their career. But a lot of scientists are actually more than you think, are more susceptible to the belief of God than you think. So what this guy is, he's deeply religious. He says, I studied science, but I also studied like whatever their law is, the religious stuff. And this is the quote in the interview. He said, but what worries me more is what people do in the name of the Jewish religion. The land isn't ours. This is the guy who said, I've studied under rabbis. He said, the land isn't ours. None of this, we were given it 2,000 years ago. He goes, no, it isn't ours. God says this all the time. He's referring to it in the passages. Because God says this all the time. If we don't act well here, if you don't act well here, don't do a good job here, he's claiming God says, I'll start over as he's done several times. Meaning, God is giving it to us as a conditional promise, not as a full promise. We forget that we're here on probation. This is his words. Couldn't say it better. Yeah, we forget that we're here on probation. Any rabbi telling you otherwise is distorting Judaism. You see, there's a difference in those who are learned and those who are just spouting, this is our land 2,000 years ago, and the victimhood. And they were kicked, according to their own narrative, they were kicked. Actually, there's a funny bit about that. They were kicked out of, they say, more than 100 different countries. Or 100 and so different regions, countries, whatever, We'll even add the Khaybar and Bani Qurayza and so on. We'll add that to the list, yeah? More than 100, for sure. If I'm kicked out of more than 100, I would, imagine I went to a course and I failed 100 times in different countries, then the problem is with me. But they say, the problem is people are jealous of us. People are jealous of us. And they don't reflect and they don't, except a few people, except a few of them. Like this guy, who is a Zionist. He's not even like one of these pro-Palestinian voices. He's saying what we've done is bad. It's against it's against what God has told us we should do in the land, and therefore it's on probation. We may lose it if we're not careful. Yeah? So I was surprised at his honesty. In this article that was generally about his scientific career. Right. We go back to the dua of the. I know, by the way, they were kicked out of 100 countries, and one of them, some of them, they keep going on and saying these annoying lines. You must have heard of it. We survived the Romans. We survived the Persians. We survived the Mongols. It's like a soundtrack. We survived the Crusaders. We survived the communists, even though they founded it. But never mind, we survived it. We survived what we founded. We survived this and that. They have a long list of countries and regions that they survived. Surviving, though, is not good enough. Because even cockroaches can survive. If I survive, but in a state of humiliation, that isn't a survival. Yes, that isn't a survival. But for them, they consider survival as a victory. But we want to remind them, and remind ourselves, that they have survived the Roman Empire, but we defeated the Roman Empire. They survived the Persian Empire, well done to them, but we defeated the Persian Empire. They survived the Crusaders, very well done to them, but we defeated the Crusaders. They survived the Mongols, but we defeated the Mongols. And by the way, the last city that the Mongols destroyed was in Gaza. I don't know if you know this. The Mongols reached all the way up to Gaza, destroyed it, killed thousands, the usual destruction that was similar to what you're saying. And then they sent a letter to the leadership in Egypt leadership in Egypt. And Egypt right back then was ruled by a guy called Mahmoud. He was like Afghani. He's from he's Qutuz. His famous name is Qutuz. He was like an Afghan immigrant to Egypt who became Mamluk. He was like a son of captured in war. Yeah, his parents or his mom was captured in war. But then he became a Muslim, raised in Islam, and then he became the leader of Egypt. He was like an Afghan guy. Yeah. Egypt at that time was ruled by him, and he's really but it was actually factioned up. They were like different generals with power fighting one another. One, for example, there was one. The prominent general was Papers. Yeah. So there was Papers. He was also, I think, from one of the Caucasian countries. I can't remember where he was from. But and then there were a few others. So they were like not united. They were not united. But when the letter was very insulting. The letter even used verses in the Quran incorrectly, but basically we're gonna destroy you if you don't submit. You submit to us now, or we will wipe you out. We will destroy you. You are the children of darkness. You get the point, yeah? The same usual cluster, yeah? Qutuz, Papers, and the other Mamalik generals, they formed a temporary... Can you guys hear me, by the way? Are you with me? Yes. So they formed a temporary alliance, unified for just like the Afghan people unified against the communists, and they fought each other afterwards, and they unified against the NATO. And this is the formula for success, by the way. If you want to know what the formula for victory is, you unify, and then you delay fighting one another later. You don't fight before. Like the problem today is in Bilad al-Sham, they wanted to fight, like in Syria, for example, they fought for the spoils of war before getting rid of the Russian occupation and the Assad regime. You first get rid. You first unite. You set aside your differences, and then you can fight one another. And that's what the Mamalik did. They said temporarily we're going to set aside all our differences. We're going to actually unite. They united, generally united, in the full definition, and they defeated the Mongols in near GAZA, in a place called Ain Jalut, in one of the most epic battles that has ever happened in all of Islamic history, probably in all of world history. As soon as the battle finished, they went back to fighting one another. Papers killed Qutuz, took over, and there were factions. It doesn't matter. Yeah? But the point is, when the tough time came, Papers, by the way, he killed Qutuz. He was pretty, if we go by the reports, but he was actually a good leader in terms of he was a powerful leader. It wasn't like he killed him and he did a coup and then he became a Mossad agent, yeah? Not like others. But no, he killed him, but he also was a good leader. But the point is, it was a power struggle, but they put the interest of the Ummah before their own interest, then they put their interests afterwards. Yeah? This is what's needed. This is what's needed. If the Ummah only agreed to unite temporarily, they will become victorious. Wallahi, they will become victorious. With certainty, I'm saying they will become victorious. But they don't want to unite. They don't even want to fight. That's the problem. The problem is they don't even want to fight. And Ummah today we say, oh, look at the Iranians, the Shia, the Rawafid, they're pretending rockets. What have you done? Khalas, humma bad. Rockets, bad. What have you done? Do you see where we are? Yeah? We'll come back to this. Very important point. Yeah? Going back to the final layer of the da'wah, that I believe that some of the Palestinians are saying it right now. Yeah? The Merkaba is coming. They're about to be wiped out. أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ. Who is the one who answers the desperate plea, when you call upon him? وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ, and he removes the harm. وَيَجْعَلُكُمْ خُلَفَاءَ الْأَرْضِ, and he makes you the inheritors of the land. Don't for 1 minute think that the killers of the prophets, will inherit the land. La. Even I showed you, the professor himself, who studied the rabbinical law, said this. It's on probation. Yeah, but we are also on probation. Everyone is on probation, and don't think we deserve anything. If we don't behave, we also lose it. Right? It's the same thing. We lost Palestine because we didn't. We lost because of this. Yeah. And by the way, Palestine was lost under a khilafah. Like some people say, the condition of fleeing Palestine is the khilafah must return. Many of you have heard this, right? The khilafah must return. It was during the khilafah that Palestine was lost this time and during before Salah ad-Din and during the Crusader times. It was during the khilafah that they lost it. And Salah ad-Din took over the land in spite of the khilafah. The khilafah had pretty much zero role or a negative role. There was no role whatsoever for the khilafah. Yeah? And Qutuz, by the way, the Mamalik and papers and so on, they were not khulafa, and the khilafah was pretty much again absent. I think when the Mamalik when the Mongols killed the khilafah in Iraq, the Mamalik were desperately tried to find one remaining descendant of related to the Abbasids, and then they just gave him nominal khilafah, but he had no roles. He was not even worse than the King Charles or whatever, in the UK, where they have this monarchy that is not really that doesn't have executive power. It had even less power than that. Yeah, no executive power. It was just but they wanted to just have it symbolically, so people can pray in the Jumu'ah and so because they consider it a religious thing. But the point is, the Khilafah had zero role in the liberation of Palestine or the liberation of the defeat of the Mongols near Gaza. So don't pin your hopes on that. Don't use that as an opium. Oh, I don't want to act because the Khilafah is not here. Or the other one that's even more sad is the Mahdi. The Mahdi, Aini, the Mahdi has to come back. Who told you the Mahdi has anything to do with the liberation here? Who told you has anything? Give me one evidence that the Mahdi has anything to do with the liberation of Palestine. No evidence. But there's a hadith that in the end of times, the Yahud, the Bani Israel, will hide behind the rocks and the trees, and this is a different issue. This is during the time of the Dajjal in the distant future. Nothing to do with now. This is when the Bani Israel will already have been defeated from the land. Palestine will already be long liberated. And what will happen, I think what will happen, and this is now my opinion, so I'm being honest. I think will happen is Bani Israel will renounce Zionism after they are defeated from the land, and then they will go back to their rabbinical teachings or the Talmud, and it will say we should have waited for the Messiah. We should have waited for the Messiah. We didn't wait for the Messiah. That's why the Muslims defeated us. We needed to wait for the Messiah. So they will wait for the Messiah. But of course, the real Messiah has already emerged, Isa ibn Maryam, and the other Messiah, Muhammad ibn Abdullah, has already emerged. But they're waiting for the false Messiah, the Iraqi Messiah, who will emerge in that region and with one eye. And so you get the point. Yeah, and they will try to take over the land one more time, but they will fail because Isa ibn Maryam will come and he will kill him in Lud, in the area of Lud in Palestine. So the point is, this is a different issue, nothing to do with now. This is long and distant. Don't confuse this. Don't use this as a reason not to act. طيب. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعا ويكشف السوء ويجعلكم خلفاء الأرض إله مع الله. Is there any ilah besides Allah? It's another rhetorical question. Is there any إله مع الله? إله مع Allah. In case you thought that somehow Biden is the person in charge, or Netanyahu, or the Freemasons. People go through these ideas, right? No, A'ilahum ma'Allah. Is there anyone that can rival Allah in his power? A'ilahum ma'Allah. You see the power, eh? A'ilahum ma'Allah. Listen, the enemy, قَلِيلًا مَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. Little do you remember. All the times when people A'ilahum ma'Allah. Yeah? You see what Allah is trying to tell us? The enemy has called upon Biden and the European leaders for assistance, for madad. And Netanyahu has called upon Biden and said, Ya Biden, madad. Madad, Ya Biden. You know madad, assistance. We say madad, madad. But we say, Ya Allah, madad, Ya Allah. We say madad, Ya Allah. Madad min indak, Ya Allah. The enemy has called upon madad, upon America for assistance, and we call upon Allah for assistance. Madad, Ya Allah. Assistance. Such that you look at the situation and you see that they have taken over this area, but then the Palestinians emerge from that area, and then they go from that area. So it's like a cat and mouse game, like the Afghani games. Why? Why? Because madad min Allah. Ilahum ma'allah. Is there any other power, any other ilah with Allah? No. We know the answer. It doesn't even need an answer. You see. Now this brings us to another point. Another point. And let's be honest, some of you may have this doubt. I'm not going to blame you for this doubt. Yes? I mean, we can read verses like a hadith like لا تزال طائفة من أمتي على الحق ظاهرين لعدوهم قاهرين لا يضرهم من خالفهم, and so on. There will always be a group of my ummah that is victorious, apparent in their victory on their enemy, powerful on their enemy or vicious against their enemy. لا يضرهم من خالفهم. They will not be harmed by those who oppose them. وَلَا يَضُرُّهُمْ مَنْ خَذَلَهُمْ. There's in another phrasing, لَا يَضُرُّهُمْ مَنْ خَذَلَهُمْ. Those who betray them, those who let them down. Those who let them down. By the way, the fact that we have betrayed and let down the Palestinians, especially in the neighboring countries, is a prophecy from Rasulullah. Yeah. لَا يَضُرُّهُمْ مَنْ خَذَلَهُمْ. Meaning it will happen. If Rasulullah is saying that they're going to be let down, in this hadith, the Sahaba asked him, who is it from? Where are these people? Who are these people that are going to be victorious even if they're let down, even if no one supports them? Who are they? He said, بِبَيْتِ الْمَقْدِسِ وَأَكْنَافُ بَيْتِ الْمَقْدِسِ. They are around Bayt al-Maqdis. In Bayt al-Maqdis, which is in Jerusalem, or around it. Around it, yeah? But, in Palestine. And here, لَا يَضُرُّهُمْ مَنْ خَالَفَهُمْ أو لا يضرهم من خذلهم in other phrasings. But today, if you go to the border of in Rafah, between Egypt and Palestine, you will find Egyptian soldiers who, if you looked at them, you will say, MashaAllah, they are super religious. I have a friend who went to Egypt, and I told him, Egypt is a dictatorship, don't go. But he went. And he came back and said, you know what? I found the most religious people were the army and the police officers. Constantly saying, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Constantly praying Quran. They were great people. He said, why, you're saying to me one thing and I'm seeing something else. If you go to the border of Rafah, you will see soldiers who, some of them are praying, some of them are doing dhikr, some of them are, memorizing Quran, while they are lifting their rifles and killing and joining in the genocide against the Palestinians. You see. So don't. You see. By the way, I don't even consider it an Israeli genocide. I consider it an Israeli-Egyptian genocide. The people who are... It's impossible for Israel to commit a genocide if Egypt had not closed its border. But we can't just blame Sisi. We say, Sisi, the Mossad agent Sisi, La ya Habibi, even the soldiers are lifting their rifles, attacking the Palestinians. There was a Palestinian who managed to slip through the net. He went from Palestine, fled out of desperation. He was beaten up, viciously beaten up by the Egyptian soldiers who are also doing dhikr. وصلوات على النبي. Why not? يعني you see, but they're letting down. Whether their ba'a salah is going to be accepted or not is a different issue. Probably not going to be accepted, to be honest, if I'm being honest with you. But whatever. But there's a prophecy that these people will let the Palestinians down. It happened also during the time of Salah ad-Din. The neighboring nations let the Palestinians down as the Crusaders occupied the land for 90 years or 80 years or whatever. Yeah. So do you see? It happens, keeps happening. Yeah. And the prophecies, it will keep happening. Yeah. And now we are seeing it in a very acute way. The question though is, was it worth it? In Yahuma, they were oppressed people. Let me tell you an anecdote. Imam Shafi'i, when he was 80, listen carefully to what I say and what I don't say and what I should have said. Imam Shafi'i, when he was 80, he went and met Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. And how do I know he's 80? Because he told Ibn Hajar, I haven't seen you since I was 5 years old. And they were trying to go to, they said, you know what, we need to go and pray with Ibn Qudama. But in a couple of years, inshallah. Yeah. Right. Was it worth it? Should this have happened? Should it have happened or not? The enemy, look. According to the other side, the enemy, surviving is the ultimate achievement. We survived the Roman, the Persian, we are the survivors and surviving. Yeah. Of course, they don't fail to mention they survived as ghettos in a very humiliating way, apart from under Muslim lands, by the way. But other than that, they were very humiliated and so on. But they don't mention it. It doesn't matter. Survival for them is the ultimate achievement. But the Ummah of Muhammad, to be honest, doesn't agree with that. I have to be honest. Even today, even Muslims today, we don't agree with that. I'll tell you why. The reality shows this from the past and now. If you look at today, you see Muslims in Kashmir, Muslims in the Uyghur. Who are the oppressed people, right? Kashmir, Uyghur, the Palestinians, the Syrians. I'm sorry if I've missed out any of the nations, but you get the point. Oh my gosh, the Chechens maybe. The Chechens, Taban. Who else? Iraqis. The point. The list is big. Yeah. Fine. The Rohingya. We forgot the Rohingya. Like, if you look at these people, to be honest, they could immediately, I have an immediate solution for these oppressed people. They can get out of their oppression today, not tomorrow, today. All the Rohingya and the Uyghurs and the Palestinians need to do is they need to change their religion. Explain to you why. In the Uyghur, I used to know I still know he's the son of a prominent communist leader, yeah, communist governor. Yani, I can't mention the names, yeah. He said to me, I asked him. He was my roommate on a trip. He went to a conference. He's like a PhD student. Yeah. But I said to him, what you are doing with the Uyghurs is oppressive. He invited me to China. I said to him, I don't know. I'm against what's happening with the Uyghurs. And now that I've told you this, you're probably going to snitch me and then I'm going to get killed. So, He goes, no. What we're doing with the Uyghurs is we put them in the camp and the center facilities for them to change their beliefs. But we don't, once they change their beliefs, they leave, they can have a stipend, they can set up businesses, everything is okay. You just need to change the belief. And he has told the truth. All the Uyghurs have to do is change their belief from Rasulullah ﷺ to Karl Marx or Mao or whatever the communists believe in. From this to this. And they will be saved. Silk Road initiatives, unprecedented investments and so on. The Rohingya, the same. All they have to do is replace Allah with Buddha. Bow down to statue of Buddha instead of Allah. They can even say the same Allahu Akbar, but Buddha Akbar or whatever, and bow down, and they will be saved. UN investments, precious enriched people, Yeah? The same thing with the Indian Muslims. That's the one I forgot. The Indian Muslims. All they have to do is smear themselves with the cow dung and replace the Islamic purity with these impure beliefs, and they will be saved. They will be saved. What do the Hindus want? They don't want to oppress them for no reason. There's a lot of energy involved in oppressing people. If they change, they worship the cow dung and the cow and the Rama and the Sita and the khalas, they will finish. Even the Syrians, Bashar offered them at the beginning, say La ilaha illa Bashar and you'll be saved. And they refused. Even now they're living as refugees in their own country. The solution for them is easy. But they insist on not doing the solution. Yeah? The Palestinians, the same thing. Just rip out one page in the Quran, Surah Al-Isra, a few verses, and then khalas, it's okay. You can even pretend to be a Muslim. The defense minister of the Zionist entity, he did iftar with a Bedouin tribe in the Negev desert, in the Naqab desert. He did iftar with them. And they were, again, Quran, Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Who are they doing iftar with? A war criminal. Yeah. So do you see? The solution is there. The solution is there. But why does the Ummah of Muhammad not accept this? To understand this, we have to go back to the beginning. Al-Hussein ibn Ali, with 70 or so members of Al-Rasul, the family of the Prophet Muhammad, they travel to overthrow the oppressive leader at that time, Yazid. And Yazid was oppressive, but by our definition today, we would be ecstatic about Yazid. Yazid today would be a great leader. I don't think you would be like jumping over you will be attacking anyone who attacks Yazid. Yeah? Yazid would be today one of the, if not the most righteous of leaders today. Yeah? So we go back there. So Yazid, because the Sahaba have a higher standard than us. Yeah? Yazid is oppressive, and the oppression is not accepting it. He doesn't accept that he took power in this way. He doesn't accept that he's oppressive in this way. He wants to continue upon the just system of governance. Al-Hussein goes, and again the people say, we'll support you, and long live Palestine, and people speak a lot, yeah. But when it comes to actions, people don't do. Yeah, people speak a lot, but when it comes to actions, they don't do. Yeah, so he had a lot of supporters. Mawlaya, we will to the death we will die with you, and so on and so on. Yeah? When you know the story, he goes there, he finds himself in Karbala. The people who, not only the people, this is the funny thing, that not only the people who gave him false promises not join him in fighting, he was surprised to find that the leaders who were writing letters of pledges were now fighting him. The leaders, his Shia, his top followers, were now in front of him in the battle, wanting to kill him and preventing him from even drinking water. They put a siege on him, besieged him. No water, no food, no that. We're going to kill you. Then they gave him a ceasefire demand, similar to one of these ceasefire demands. Yeah, ceasefire demand. They sent a general, a guy called Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, and he basically told him, Al-Hussein told him, I want to go to one of the scenes of war, yani take me to a battlefield and let me fight until I get killed, fi sabilillah. Or let me go back to Mecca or Medina and stay there and do ibadah for the rest of my life. I'm not going to cause problems. Or let me go to speak to Yazid and I'll negotiate with him. Ubayd ibn Ziyad said, no, you're going to be taken in and we're going to humiliate you and basically forget all of this. We're going to arrest you and take you and basically we're going to humiliate you. We're going to make an example out of you. So Imam Hussein said his famous words, Inna da'i ibn da'i. The so-and-so, he's referring to Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad in a derogatory way, the so-and-so, يُرَكِّزُنِي أو قَدْ رَكَّزَنِي بَيْنَ اثْنَتَيْن. He's cornering me, he's forcing me between two things. Hamas must hand all of themselves and their weapons and that and humiliate themselves. They're refusing a just settlement. Yeah? The Palestinians must accept the children of darkness. إن الداعي ابن الداعي قد ركزني بين اثنتين. He is forcing me between two options. بين السلة والذلة. Between the war, between fighting, between death, and between the fight to the death, or between humiliation. Between humiliation. So Imam Hussein found himself between accepting to live but in a state of subjugation and humiliation, or to die in a state of glory and war. And so he had, by the way, he was fighting a whole army. He had lots of kids, women and kids. He had every excuse to accept the humiliation. خلاص بقى مصلحة ومفسدة ومضمضة. They all use these terms today, right? The wisdom, the hikmah, Imam Hussein said إن الداعي ابن الداعي قد ركزني بين اثنتين بين السلة والذل وهيهات من الذلة. He will never accept humiliation, meaning it's the fight to the death. The fight to the death. This is the Ummah of Muhammad. It's not just limited to Hussein, it's happening until now. Yeah? Khalid ibn al-Walid. Never accept the humiliation of the checkpoints, the humiliation of living under 75 or 6 years now of occupation, the humiliation of being treated like a criminal, a wild animal in your own land. لا هيهات من الذلة. We'd rather fight to the death than accept this. You see what Imam Hussein and others like him are saying. هيهات من الذلة. And Abu Sulaiman, Khalid ibn al-Walid, he found himself faced with a similar humiliating proposal in the run-up to the Battle of Yarmouk, which is in South Syria. Yarmouk. The Roman Empire, who, by the way, at that stage was like, he formed an alliance with the Persians. They got desperate. Like they were, but by the way, it wasn't an easy sailing thing. They were now facing an overwhelming force. They were now faced with a real challenge, the Sahaba, yeah. So, but the Roman Empire nonetheless gave them a way out. Again, if you just want to live, there is many opportunities just to live. Yeah? He told the Roman Empire governor or the Roman leader send a letter or a message to Khalid ibn al-Walid and the Muslim camp. And Khalid ibn al-Walid at that time he was with Abu Ubaidah ibn Amir ibn al-Jarrah, one of the great heroes of Islam, who is like a guest, ضيف في قلوبنا, a guest in our hearts. But Abu Ubaidah and Khalid ibn al-Walid received this message, and the message was as follows. Submit, go back. You are hungry. You're just Arabs. You're just hungry people. We know you want money. We know you need assistance. We know you need UN aid, whatever. No, we know you need food and money. We'll give you that. We'll give you food and money, and you can stop fighting. This is what you were fighting for, right? You wanted food and money. You're just poor desert people coming out. We'll give you food and money for the whole year, and then next year come back and we'll give you more food and money. And we're going to give you a stipend, normalization fee if you go back. No. Khalid ibn al-Walid said, this is not what we are. This is wrong. What you're saying is wrong. But we are thirsty for the blood of Romans. We heard the Roman blood is the most succulent blood. We are thirsty for Roman blood. And it happened, and they defeated them in Yarmouk. Another time when a choice between living a life of humiliation and dying for your rights came when, so after Imam Hussein was killed, there was a revolution and they got rid of Yazid was overthrown. Basically, he was like technically still Khalifa, but no one actually gave him bay'ah, and they moved on and they gave bay'ah to Abdullah ibn Zubayr. Abdullah ibn Zubayr. Abdullah ibn Zubayr stayed as a Khalifa for 10 years, and he was a really good Khalifa, very simple. He was like basically the Afghan Mullah Omar. Basically, he was just like he is very azahid. He doesn't bribe people. He doesn't deal with the worldly pleasures. He would just pray a lot and so on. And people loved him, but the other side had money, power, technology. You get the point, right? So you have to people people stood with him to the end, but near the end, as he was about to fall, Mecca was surrounded, was besieged, like Gaza was besieged now. It was a total siege, and people said, "We love you, Yani, but we respect, but we want to live." So they left. And Hajjaj told them, "If you come and you declare yourself as kuffar, Khawarij, basically, I will let you go. And you just need to declare yourself as sinners, Khawarij, and I'll let you go." Even two of his sons left him. They just wanted to live. It's also understandable, right? Human life. Abdullah ibn Zubayr went to his mother Asma bint Abi Bakr, because he's the grandson of Abu Bakr Siddiq. Yeah? He went to, his mother was Asma bint Abi Bakr, and she was like 100 years old at that time, or more than 100, and she was like blind, very frail woman, and he was like, "Oh mother, they're going to kill me. They're going to, I'm overwhelmed now. Do I fight, or do I surrender, or do I hand myself in, or do I apologize? What do I do?" His mother told him, "If you are upon the truth, then you must be firm upon the truth. Your friends, your colleagues, and your comrades were killed, because people were killed with him, right? And if you just wanted the worldly dunya, if you did this because of the worldly dunya, then woe unto you. Then you're a despicable individual. You've destroyed yourself and destroyed the people who are with you. And you have to choose. Did you do this for the right reason, or did you do this for the wrong reason?" Yeah. And he said to her, "But they're going to skin me alive, and they're going to behead me, and he said, "So what? So what? Death is better. Being killed is better. وَلَضَرْبَةُ سَيْفٍ فِي عِزٍ خَيْرٌ مِّن ضَرْبَةِ صَوْتٍ فِي مَذَلَّةٍ." Asma bint Abi Bakr, frail woman at that time, is telling her son, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, this legendary line, وَاللَّهِ لَضَرْبَةُ سَيْفٍ فِي عِزٍ. Being hit, being struck by a sword in glory, being droned in glory, being killed by a tank in glory. وَاللَّهِ لَضَرْبَةُ سَيْفٍ فِي عِزٍ خَيْرٌ مِّن ضَرْبَةِ صَوْتٍ فِي مَذَلَّةٍ. It's better than living a life under the whip, being whipped by an oppressor. You live a humiliating life. Being killed in this case is better. You see why the Ummah of Muhammad consistently, even in their weakest moments, consistently chooses glory over humiliation? And the countries that have chosen humiliation, like Egypt, like Jordan, you look at them and you feel sorry for them. Even the richer countries like the UAE, they're dying slowly of diabetes. UAE, low birth rate, one of the lowest in the world now, or going down there. That's a good case. And look at Egypt, which is not just, Egypt is directly involved in the genocide, and its people are directly complicit in the genocide, by the way. And when you have a cousin or your son, and he's a soldier and he's going to oppress the Palestinians, and you have a duty to say something. A duty that you can't. It's not okay. Your life is not more important than the Palestinians. But do you see the calculation? Hayhat minna dhillah. The Palestinians said the same thing. Hayhat minna dhillah. We're not going to accept this humiliation. Death or humiliation. It's simple. Other nations, killers of the prophets, for example, those who kill prophets, For them, living a life of disgrace is more preferable than dying in glory. This is their calculation. But for us, Ummah Muhammad, greatest Ummah, La darbatu sayfin fi azzin khayrun min darbatu sawtin fi badallah. Being killed in glory is better than living a life of humiliation. But on this note, I want to end. I end with one story. And I always say the story, and I will say it until it's clear to people. Lieutenant Harold Dixon, a British military attaché in the Arabian region, and when the British were carving the regions up. And this happened in November 1922. There was the main guy in Britain who Britain sent to carve up the region was Lord Cox Percy. He was Britain's representative in Baghdad, but actually he had like a portfolio of the whole region, really. He was in his tent. They had tents at that time, like, because they're military, they're moving around a lot of tents. Sheikh Abdulaziz ibn Saud, the founder of the modern Saudi so-called country, comes and he wants more of the land. The British has promised him like Arabia, but he wants Iraq, or he wants like a bigger pot. So he's coming in to like, I'm not happy with what you've given me, sir. I'm not happy, Sir Cox Percy, what you've given me. Can you give me a bit more? Yeah? Lieutenant Harold Dixon says, I was astonished to see Ibn Saud being reprimanded like a naughty schoolboy. Now, I don't know, he didn't elaborate what he means by reprimanded. Like, back then they used to like smack on the bottom, but maybe he means like they were just shouting at him, like, how dare you, who are you? So Lord Cox Percy is reprimanding Sheikh Abdul Aziz ibn Saud. Abdul Aziz. We could say Salman, Fahad, these are, but anything but Abdul Aziz, anything but him. He's the top one. Yeah, the rest may have corrupted, but Abdul Aziz ibn Saud, so-called Abdul Aziz ibn Saud, is being reprimanded like a naughty. You can't hear? I'm lucky, but sorry. Is my voice clear? Am I the only? We can hear. Okay. Allah يعوضك بقى نعمل لك ايه. Abdul Aziz Ibn Saud is being reprimanded like a naughty schoolboy. This is the leaders, like a naughty schoolboy, and being told sharply by Sir Lord Percy Cox, and Cox who says, I'm the man. I'm going to decide on the type and general line of the frontier. I decide what you get, young boy. And then Abdul Aziz says, he apologizes and says, you are my mummy and daddy. You are my mummy and daddy. Yes. You are my mummy and daddy. This is who we're told to obey. This is who we are told to obey. We are told to obey schoolboys who were reprimanded by the British representatives, not even by the British king. Yeah? You see? But bear that in mind. Yeah? That we have a crisis of leadership, but لا يضرهم من خذلهم. The victory will still happen because this region is special. It happened with the Mongols, with the Crusaders, and it will happen again, and it will continue to happen. This region is special. There's something special about this region. Yeah. And so we end with a prayer. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Allah, Ya Aziz, we ask you by your grand name. La ilaha illa anta. Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum. Grant victory to the Muslims in Palestine and everywhere. Grant them victory, a decisive victory. Oh Allah, we apologize that we have let them down. Oh Allah, remove the humiliation that is over our heads. Ya Allah, madad, Ya Allah. The enemy has called upon America for madad, and we call upon you for madad. Madad, Ya Allah. Madad, Ya Allah. Madad, Ya Allah. O Allah, make it a victory from the victories of Yarmouk and Khaybar and Ain Jalut. Make it from the great victories, Ya Allah. Madad, Ya Allah. Madad, Ya Allah. Madad, Ya Allah. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Rasulillah. If there's a few questions I can answer, and then we can just wrap it up. No? Oh, okay, there was a question about the people demonstrating. Let's see. Who has told you that demonstrating is haram? Okay. Demonstrating is a tool. It's a tool, just like using the internet is a tool. How you use it can be halal or haram. If you're demonstrating in a feminist march, then that's haram. If you're demonstrating as a way to voice your call, it's a form of amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy al munkar. It's the opposite. It's when you don't demonstrate. But Allah doesn't even answer your dua. Yeah? You're not enjoying good or forbidding evil. And the highest form of enjoying good and forbidding evil is to confront with your actions, with the hands. But if you cannot do that, then you demonstrate so you're using your tongue. And some would consider even demonstrating higher than using your tongue, because you're actually going out and walking and blockading roads and stuff. So it's higher than that. And it's the same with boycotting products like Starbucks. And I have always been in favor of only limiting the boycott to one or two companies to make it as an example. Like when the Ummah focus on just Starbucks and McDonald's, they are losing heavily in the quarterly earnings. If you look at the stock quarterly earnings, losing heavily. They're firing lots of workers, especially in the far Asia, like Indonesia, Malaysia, and so on, and in the Arab world. I see it myself when I went to, I recently traveled there, and it's empty. Starbucks is empty. And even in London, even in the UK, the Muslim areas, the Starbucks is pretty much closing or it's empty. People are too ashamed to go in. You know, and it reminds me in Ramadan, people were protesting outside the Starbucks, shaming anyone who's going in. And it has an effect. Of course, this is not going to liberate Palestine, but the effect is that you say, but buying and selling coffee is halal. Why are you making halal that is haram and da? You're using it as a tool of war. Because you understand? So it's just you're using it as a war. And the Ummah now has agreed that this is a good tool of war and it's working. But it works if you're concentrated. If you keep diluting and literally some people are boycotting hundreds of products, you end up boycotting nothing. Boycott limited products. Make examples so other companies are forced to not go along that line. And there is a precedent also obviously this is haram precedent, but the Guinness, the alcohol brand, in America, the right-wingers, they boycotted them because the Guinness, they used a transgender individual to market their product. So they just focused on that one company. There's a lot of woke companies that just focus on that one company, such that if you handed to the right-wingers the Guinness, people were too ashamed to drink it. And this cost the company, and it's costing the Budweiser heavy, not Guinness, Budweiser, I apologize. Budweiser, a heavy amount of money, and other companies stopped going woke. Because going woke is broke. Now genocide will also make you go collapse. So, you see, yeah. Yeah, but why? Because people focused on that. There's a lot of companies that are doing trans advertising, but they focused on that one company because it meant a lot to them. Focusing on just Starbucks or McDonald's, show them a humiliation, then you don't need to boycott hundreds of products because the others will just follow suit. And there's also things like Amazon. If you boycott Amazon, it's very inconvenient. People are not unlikely to join you. But if you boycott something like Starbucks, there's like other alternatives like Nero or just like many other coffee chains. So it's also about there's some wisdom behind it and some strategy behind it. And generally, people this time were really galvanized and serious about Starbucks and McDonald's, and it worked. Yeah. What is your view on receiving training from the army? Which army? The Turkish army or Look, I'm not. Is it permissible? I don't know about the training in the army. Like, I feel like, yes, I am. For human, I am. So, is it permissible to work in these stores? I'm not here to give a fatwa. It's not about permissible. It's the question is, do you want to join the economical war? دلوقتي America wages war, and the West wages war economically. They can completely wipe you out economically. They can literally remove money from your account, freeze your account, and they do this to Muslims and even right-wingers, some right-wingers. They do this, they just take their money and that's, you're screwed. So the war now is not just with tanks, it's with money. Money is a strong war. So boycotting someone, removing, so if you work for these companies, it's not about what's halal or haram, it's about, do you want to join the war or not? This is a war against Zionism economically. Do you want to or not? If you don't, then leave your job and find something else. Yeah. Look, the army, like for example, it's like the Egyptian army. People are conscripted in some of these armies. In armies where they're not conscripted, why would you want to work with them at all? No reason. If you're conscripted, the question is, what should you do if you're conscripted? You've been conscripted and you got to go to Rafah. Then this is where the complication happens, right? Because the problem is a lot of people are conscripted. They're like, you have to go there, or you're not able to travel, or your life becomes, or you go to prison if you avoid military service. So this becomes difficult. And the best solution is, if you do get to that area, then you should use your position to help Muslims, or preferably go to prison. You can either go to prison, which is the best option, not join and go to prison, or if you are going to join, make sure you definitely help. So if you're in Rafah, for example, or you've been based there, or you help the Palestinians. There's a lot of smuggling that goes on. This is actually how the Palestinians survive, the smuggling. Help. But most likely, to be honest, if you're in a system, it's hard to, you don't think you're smarter than the system. So a lot of Muslims, we go into the system and then infiltrate. You're not smarter than the system, and you will be burnt by the system. No, not only may Allah curse the Zionists, may Allah curse the Zionists and the backers and enablers, including the Egyptians and the Saudis and the Emiratis. Emiratis is no different than Zionism. Even the Emirati people, the average Emirati people, we don't see any protest from them. We don't see any, at least in Egypt, there's some people in prison, lots of people in prison. Saudi Arabia is filled with scholars in prison. Emirat, nothing. The people are fully in support of Muhammad ibn Zayed, sorry. Yeah? So, I don't know what their ruling is. Then it becomes a complicated issue. Yeah? Because now the people are fully, they know the guy is a traitor, they know he's a Zionist, and they're fully supporting him. This becomes a difficult question. Likely, Allah will punish them all. Likely, Allah will punish them all. Yeah. The point is, all you can do is ask people to do the right thing. People don't want to do the right thing is a different issue, but you have to encourage people to do the right thing. And we cannot say people are ignorant anymore. No one is ignorant. Everyone knows it's a genocide. Everyone knows their rulers are traitors and Mossad agents. Everyone knows. It's quite clear. The question is, what do you do about it? The past people said, maybe they had the hikmah and they're trying, and everyone knows now. But the question is, what do people do about it? Yeah. And, there's a difference between, say, Emirat and, at least Qatar. The Qatari people will say, but my king is giving me at least Al Jazeera, and Turkey will say, well, my president does send some weapons to, or used to send weapons to Israel, but at the same time he does demonstrations. I've never seen a president, instead of doing something, does a demonstration. I'm in Turkey, so I may disappear after this broadcast, but I've never seen a president give a demonstration instead of actually doing something. He did a demonstration, and he's an activist and stuff. Do something. Pressure Azerbaijan next door, which does huge military trade deals with Israel, to stop their trade deals with Israel. Azerbaijan needs Turkey and cannot survive without Turkey. Go tell them to do you see? So we have a crisis of leadership, basically. Yeah. Yeah. They didn't stop. They paused. They paused their deal with Israel. After what? After when they reach Rafah, then they. I don't want to be pessimistic. Any action is good. Any little action is good, but you would expect more from it, especially since Turkey was I wish I used a VPN it's Turkey. It sends lots of send lots of support to Armenia and Ukraine. Yes, they do. They do support the Palestinian leadership in Gaza. They do welcome them in. They're much better than other leaders, but at the same time, you expect much better from them, and they haven't delivered that better. Unless they're delivering something we don't know. They're helping the Palestinians indirectly without us knowing, but I doubt. If someone purposely oppresses another person, that promises to fix the situation and doesn't fulfill, Allah doesn't fulfill that person's dua. Yeah, potentially. Yeah, he's still an oppressor, right? Until he fixes it. And that requires knowledge and understanding. No. Listen. Let me dispel another myth. We have this myth that everyone must be, the Fajr prayer must be to the end, right? We have to, hundreds of people must, in every mosque must attend Fajr prayer. The Aqidah must all be fixed. During the time of Salahuddin, the number of the deviancies there were probably worse than what we have now in terms of Aqidah deviancies. I'm not saying Salahuddin himself. Salahuddin was a great person, but I'm saying generally the Ummah was filled with absolute filth. The stuff, if you read some of the Aqaid back then, will shock you. And also people were very, do you understand? During the times of the Mongols, everyone thought this was Qada and Qadar, and because the Mongols are from the Day of Judgment, and let's just give up and stuff. It's incorrect to say that if you're oppressed, Allah will fix you even if you don't deserve it. And the evidence is وَنُرِيدُ. Listen to this, وَنُرِيدُ. And this was about Bani Israel, who are like the killers of the prophets. You know who Bani Israel are. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to them, وَنُرِيدُ, and it's in the future tense, or in the present tense, so it applies to us now. وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً وَنَجْعَلَهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ. We wanted to, Allah says we wanted to. It's something that He wants to do. We wanted to convey our favors. Namun. The word namun, you say, what's the difference between namun? You can use different words, right? Namun here is when you give someone something, even if they don't deserve it. You just give them like a grant when they don't deserve it. وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا. Why? Because they were oppressed. Those who were oppressed in the land, we wanted to convey them a favor, give them a favor from us, even if they were not ready, they were not deserving, and make them leaders and make them inherit the land. See? So now, after Allah rescues us, then the Aqidah and the true knowledge comes into play. And as important as the Aqidah and knowledge is, it's also important to have unity. Unity is important, even if you are unifying with people who are not truly on your Aqidah. So I said to you, unity is how the Mongols conquered the world. Unity is how the Mongols were defeated as well. I told you Papers and the Mamalik. And unity and so on. So, So bear that in mind as well. There are practical reasons to victory that doesn't apply to Aqidah. That is beyond. Aqidah is one issue, and victory tactically and the battle is a different issue. Sorry, where is the question? You said the first comment? Oh, okay. You're talking about something else. Sorry, I'm just. Do you know any books on Islamic revival leadership? Look, I have a contrarian view about it. There are books that people point to, but the problem is, in the absence of Islamic leadership, I find it difficult to take seriously anyone writing books on leadership when there isn't leadership. Do you see? If Mullah Omar wrote a book on leadership, I'd read it. But he didn't write a book on leadership. Yeah, so we have to go back to in the past, Ibn Khaldun, what he wrote on leadership, and so it's very hard to take knowledge now from something that we cannot see. You see, leadership cannot be. If Sultan Abdul Hamid II maybe wrote a book on leadership, would read it, right? Because he showed some leadership in his time. So the problem is, leadership is a practical state, and a part of leadership is to not be humiliated. And it's very hard to take advice from people who are humiliated, who have humiliation, and we all have actually to a degree humiliation on top of our head. And another thing that we do is so for example, there is an organization called Hizb al-Tahrir, who have written a lot on Islamic leadership. They have scholars and people. But when you look at practically what do they want, they say we call upon the Arab armies, we call upon the Arab armies to help, to rise up to the challenge. Rise up. To do one of two things. One is to take over the power in the country, so they want army officers to take over. And the second thing is to mobilize to free Palestine. A load of nonsense. A load of crap. Bull crap. Why? First of all, theologically, we are not allowed to call upon the dead. We are not allowed to call upon the dead. It's in the Quran. At least that's the belief I follow. We're not allowed to call upon the dead. And the spiritual death is worse than the physical death. Calling upon how can you call upon an army like the Egyptian army, which is complicit directly in the genocide? You might as well call upon Netanyahu. And if you call upon Netanyahu, you have a better chance of being answered than if you call upon his subordinates. And secondly, as you saw, Abdul Aziz and the Jordanian is a traitor, son of a traitor, and it's in his DNA. How can his army or him show any promise? It's a waste of time calling upon the Arab armies. They are the enemy. They are the Munafiqeen. They are the Zionists. You see, so calling upon them is a waste of complete time and effort. It is, yes. وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ أَئِمَّةً وَنَجْعَلَهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ. We will convey a favor to those who have been oppressed on the land. Because you are oppressed on the land, you get saved. Does that make sense? Do you see? In order, there's a difference between if you had the Aqidah, then you can achieve the victories of Khalid ibn al-Walid and Umar ibn Khattab, and this is a different issue. But the question is, do you get out of your state? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took the Bani Israel out of the Holocaust, yeah? Regardless of the numbers. But they faced some oppression out of the Holocaust, and look at their status, he took them out. But then they get tested. Okay, are they thankful to Allah, or do they deserve the punishment better? So any nation who is oppressed, Muslim or non-Muslim, gets taken out of their oppression, regardless of their belief. Yeah? Can the Muslims of Palestine be punished for the mistakes of other Muslims? Look, it depends on your sphere of mind. Do you see? So collectively as a ummah, we can say we are being punished in some way. And another way, we're not actually being punished, because the ummah is resisting in Syria, is resisting in Kashmir, resisting. I told you, there are also positive signs. It's not all negative. Look at listen. In the 1960s, 50s, 60s, 70s, when the Palestinians relied on the Arab armies, for sure, they didn't want to fight. They were relying on others to fight for them. They were punished. Now the Palestinians are taking the initiative. They are the leaders. We are the followers. Do you understand? It's the other way around. They were relying on the Arab armies, who are traitors, who was established by the British. In 1948, a British general was leading the 7 Arab armies to allegedly liberate the killers of the prophets, who were implanted by the British. So a British general is sending 7 armies to allegedly, quote unquote, liberate. It was accumulating nonsense. And so the Palestinians were putting their hearts in these Arab armies. And these Arab armies were led by Asians and colonial puppets, then of course you cannot liberate anything. Of course, one Palestinian faction can do more than entire armies. Do you understand? So, do you see? Yeah? So, bear that in mind, yeah? I actually think it's very positive. The Ummah is waking up, and it's resisting multiple fronts around the world. Not just in Palestine, but elsewhere. And this is the prerequisite to us being saved. This is the prerequisite. Just like the Warsaw Ghetto uprising was the prerequisite ultimately for Bani Israel to be taken out of their state of humiliation into a state of prosperity. But they have squandered what Allah gave them. Yeah, they have squandered what Allah gave them. They were on probation, and they have massively failed their probation period. So, and even then, he promised them they will return to the land, and they returned. Did he not promise them in the Quran that they will return to the land? Did they not return to the land? But they had a choice when they returned to the land. They had a choice that they will come back. They will come back, and they will live under whoever the authority was. They said they were not allowed to seek power until the Messiah comes. We're not allowed to seek power. They came back and they sought power. They betrayed even what was promised to them, what was told of them. Yeah. So, but Allah sent them back to the land. They could have lived with Muslims side by side under Muslim rule. They could have lived like decent people, and they put themselves in a trap. They've trapped themselves now in a place, and they're stuck. Yeah. Regarding the quote of Ibn Taymiyyah, that the just state that dawlatun adila, in Allah yubqi ad-dawlatul adila walau kanat kafira, that Allah will make prosperous a state that if it's just, even if it's a disbelieving state, and vice versa. If the state is oppressive, then even if it's led by Muslims, it will be destroyed. This is true. This shows that the ideology is not the only decisive factor when it comes to these victorious issues and prosperity. Otherwise, why is America more prosperous than us? Because at some point it had a degree of justice. And now that it's declining, notice that it's declining now, right? Because it's more unjust than it was, becoming more unjust than just. This is a sunnah of Allah. This constantly happens. Yeah? But the decay, because at the state level, at the country level, the decay takes a long time. Sometimes it takes centuries to see. But then you see the decay. Anyway, I think if there's no other questions, we leave it at that. I think that's it, right? جزاك الله خيرا. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على رسول الله.